Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Soulful Abundance. I am Chris Williams, and I am here with my friend Amy today, Amy Willis, and she is a sobriety coach. And I am so super excited to hear how Amy is actually supporting women on being sober and thriving through it, not just feeling like you've got to slog through giving something up and feel deprived. So, Amy, welcome. Thank you for
Thank
being here.
you. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited for this conversation and congratulations to you on launching this. This is really awesome.
Yay, thank you, thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
super fun. Love to play the generosity game and just get more messages out there that need to be heard. And this is definitely one of them that needs to be heard for sure. So, will you share a little bit of your background? Like, how did you actually become a sobriety coach?
Yeah. So I have been, excuse me, the timing of it.
Right when we
Sorry.
start talking, right? I know. We're the mason jar sisters today. It's
Okay.
awesome.
Try that again. So I am the holistic sober coach, and I have been working professionally as a sober coach for more than 4 years at this point. And I came to the work after getting sober myself. I've been sober for more than 7 years. And that came after dealing with a pretty severe alcohol addiction for many, many years.
Mhm.
So I also grew up in a home where my dad struggled with alcohol addiction.
Mm.
And unfortunately, that was something that led to his early passing.
Mm.
And so that really served as a wake up call for me to look at my relationship to drinking. And so the work that I do now, as a result of my own experiences, getting sober was one of the best decisions I ever made. It changed my life, it
Mm.
saved my life. And I wanted to provide a resource and another option for other women and queer folks. So that's mostly
Mhm.
who I work with.
Mhm.
I wanted to provide another option to get sober. And when I first got sober, there weren't nearly as many
Mhm.
options as there are now. And I wanted to create something that I could have used when
Yeah.
I was getting sober.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's sort of my path to the work that I do now.
So great. What are some of the things that, you found along your journey that you struggled with, but also you see your clients struggling with when they're first starting out on this journey? We have, Alcoholics Anonymous, and we've got Al-Anon, and all of these other support groups. I too have alcoholism in my family,
Yeah.
so I was part of Al-Anon for many many years.
Mhm.
But I find that coaching is very different. Coaching takes it to a different level. And I'd love for you to kind of share if we can talk on those two things.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I think as a peer support option or a mutual support option, something like AA is great, right?
Mhm.
It creates a community. You are with other people who have shared experiences. You can be seen and witnessed and heard and supported, and that's really valuable
Mhm.
for lots of people. And I think that that's one element of a much more holistic patchwork of support and care that's needed if you're hoping to create sustainable, lasting change. So, in terms of how I work with people, I take a very holistic approach. So I look at not only the habit of drinking and how we got to that place in our lives. Because for most people, yes, alcohol becomes the problem, but usually it's the
Mhm.
solve for another problem.
Yeah.
And so not only do we look at, what it takes to remove it, but we also look at why you turned to it in the first place and
Mhm. Mhm.
actually address that. And so I do that in a multitude of ways. So we look at things like resiliency, we look at boundaries, we look at people pleasing behaviors, we look at self sabotage, we look at habits. Um, you know, uh, it really is a unique experience in terms of everybody's like experiences leading up to it. We really kind of, I meet clients where they're at
Mhm.
to support them in addressing how they got there,
Mhm.
and then creating the life that they want to be living.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
I love that you call it a holistic approach, because
Yeah.
it really is a holistic approach, right? We need more
Yeah.
than just one, thing. And I love the idea, the visualization of a patchwork, that we get to
Mhm.
kind of put things together, where it is that we need them and the type of support that we need to actually help us create
Yeah.
the full picture, not
Yep.
just one tiny little square.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, somebody doesn't arrive at an issue with alcohol in a vacuum, right?
Yep. Yep.
It's often environment, relationships, and some of the things that I mentioned, like people pleasing, poor boundaries,
Mhm.
often coping, right? Like that's for
Mhm.
many people, what they turn to when they're coping. It's a stress management tool. So we
Yep.
definitely spend a lot of time looking at stress, and stress management and
Mhm.
self-care and
Mhm.
central nervous system care, like learning how to integrate your body into your healing, and also working with your body to create an internal sense of safety,
Mm.
is really, really important in the entire process. So when I
Yeah.
say I take a holistic approach, it's very holistic. I'm also a yoga teacher in training currently. And
Mhm.
so that's a tool I'll be bringing to my clients as well for more integration with the body. I'm also a
Mhm.
meditation teacher and an EFT practitioner. So I bring those tools into it as well. And a lot of that, are a lot of those tools, once I teach them to my clients, they then have them for the rest of
Mhm.
their lives, and they can
Mhm.
pull from their toolboxes as needed, to deal with whatever comes up in their lives in the future, which
Yeah,
I think is really important.
absolutely. I love
Mhm.
all of that. I love that you've got a giant toolbox to support people.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What are some myths that you think that you want to bust around going sober?
Yeah. That it's boring. Um, One of the things, and sort of circling back to what you had asked earlier, which I
For
forgot
the
until right
challenges.
now.
It's okay.
um, when I first got sober, I thought I was never going to have fun again. I thought that I would not be able to socialize in the ways that I once did. I thought I wouldn't be able to connect with people in the ways that I once did. And all of those things now, on the other side of it, now that I'm sober, all of those things were myths.
Mhm.
And what I had done mentally was give my power away to alcohol.
Mhm.
And I attributed all the fun I thought I was having to alcohol. I attributed my confidence and feeling outgoing in social situations to alcohol. And what I've learned now is I actually have all of those things in me. I have the
Mhm.
confidence, I have the skills to connect with people, to talk to people, and fun looks different in that I'm not drinking until I black out
Yeah.
and am hungover the next day.
I know, right?
Um, which now I'm like, that does not sound fun at all.
Yeah, I know,
That
right? Which part of this is fun?
I
Is
know,
it
I
the
know.
drinking too much and then you're feeling like crap for 3 days later? Or
Yeah,
is it the drinking too much and throwing up because you drank too much and you like, yeah, I love that is a huge myth that needs to be busted for sure. I know that
yeah,
as I'm getting older, my body actually doesn't tolerate alcohol well at all.
yeah,
So I drink it very rarely just because I don't feel good. And my husband, the same thing. We're like,
yeah,
what? It's just not worth it for us to feel like crap, and try to recover.
yeah,
Like, why? Right.
yeah,
So we do, yeah, definitely. If we drink at all, it's, once every once in a while, but
yeah.
boy, we learn the hard way when you have too much, right? So
We sure do. Yeah. And it's really, I mean, certainly with time and regular consumption, we can develop a tolerance for it,
Mhm.
but it's a tolerance. It's
Mhm.
not because it's great for our bodies. Our bodies have to actually work quite hard to
Mhm.
process it and get it out.
Mhm.
I mean, the fact that our bodies literally will repeatedly make us throw up to get this out of our bodies
Yeah.
should maybe be a signal that it's not something we want to be putting in our bodies that often, right? It's
Right,
really
right.
not great for anybody.
Yeah,
And I think we can, I don't know, trick ourselves into thinking it's okay because we've developed a tolerance,
yeah.
but it's really just your body like working really hard to
Mhm.
rid itself of a toxin, which is what alcohol is.
Yeah, exactly. I would thank you so much for saying that. That's exactly what I was going to say. It's a
Yeah.
toxin
Yeah.
that we're actually, putting into our brain. And
Yeah.
yeah. So I would love to hear. So thank you for that myth. Are there any other myths that you hear out there that you're like, yeah, that's not actually true? That your clients come to you thinking that,
Hmm. I mean, there's lots, but I would say the biggest ones are around socializing, around having fun, around the connection piece with
mhm,
people.
mhm.
I mean, more broadly, there's definitely the myth that there are health benefits associated with alcohol.
Oh, yes, right? Like drink a glass of red wine every night for the resveratrol or yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll just start by saying that the World Health Organization and the World Heart Federation both have publicly stated that zero alcohol is the healthiest and safest for human consumption.
Mm,
So we shouldn't be drinking it if we're concerned about
our health.
health at all.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
certainly if there are any benefits associated with drinking, um what and I have a background in academic research, so I see this all the time. Cherry picking results, so a study, and
Mhm.
often those studies are paid for by alcohol companies, so that's an
Right,
important piece to consider. But
right.
they will take this teeny tiny benefit, and it may be like, it would likely be positioned as a possible
Mm,
benefit. So they'll talk about that, but they won't talk about all the other negative
yep,
consequences that go
yep.
along with that maybe tiny benefit. So what we know is it's really not safe for human consumption. And actually, the Canadian Center on Substance Use and Addiction recently released an updated guideline for low risk alcohol consumption. And they now say that in order to stay in the low risk category, they recommend that folks not consume more than 2 standard drinks per week, which is
That
a
still sounds like a lot to me.
it is a lot, but that's where we can safely stay in the low risk range. But if you
Yeah,
think about that, if you go out for drinks after work, you're probably having more than two in one sitting, which
yeah,
also
that's true.
puts you into the binge drinking category.
That's
um,
true.
so I think we're making strides towards shifting the myth or the
Mhm.
confusion around alcohol being healthy or having health benefits. It's taking a while, but I think we're moving towards busting that myth.
That's fantastic. I love that you've got the academic research behind that too. It's not just, what can we find on Dr. Google? It's actually
Yeah,
researched and there's studies and there's scientific evidence behind that.
absolutely.
Where would be a good place? Like, do you have any tips for anybody, any of our audience listeners that would be like, I would like, what would be the place to start? Are there, because there's always like, what would be a place for somebody to actually start if they're wanting to get sober?
So I would say just, something that doesn't require any external
Hmm.
anything, but
Hmm.
just getting curious with your own relationship to drinking.
Mm,
So, why am I drinking is a really great starting point. I
mhm,
think for so many people, it kind of exists automatically in their background of their lives, and they just kind of do it, right? Going out for drinks after
mhm,
work or having wine with dinner. So
mhm,
just asking the question, why am I doing this?
mhm,
What am I hoping to get out of this experience? Am I actually getting that thing out of this experience?
mhm,
How does it make me feel before, during, after? Do I like how I feel when I'm
mhm,
drinking? Do I like how I feel after I'm drinking?
mhm.
So I think just, getting curious, being intentional, being aware of how this thing exists in your life is a really great starting point. You don't even have to do anything differently,
Mm,
but just
mhm.
asking the questions and noticing what's happening in your life, some of the patterns, some of the habits, what you're thinking about it, how you feel about it is a really great starting point. You don't have to call yourself anything. You don't have to change anything, but just
Mhm.
noticing and collecting information and then deciding if you'd like to do anything about that.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, to just start and get curious. And that's so, so powerful, because
Yeah.
if we don't understand why we're doing it, then it's
Mhm.
going to be really hard to shift it.
Absolutely.
And I love those questions and those prompts, so that you
Mm.
can just be real, right? It's starting with, let me just get honest and
Yeah.
truthful with myself and take a look at, all right, like, what, and even what happens, right? Like, how are we feeling when you do, reach for a glass of wine around the holidays when you've got a family gathering or something? An
Yeah.
uncomfortable conversation pops up at the table. It's like, yeah, let's have some more wine. Like,
Yeah.
though there's so many different, scenarios that happens. But I think that when we're not aware
Yeah.
of I love that you said earlier about it's solving a problem, a different problem, right? It's a
Yeah.
solution for a different problem.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think curiosity is something that is a practice that's accessible to all of us,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I think that that also makes it feel less threatening.
Mhm. Yeah, and curiosity is very different than judging yourself, right? Curiosity is not the same thing as judgment. Will you share a little bit about the difference? Because a lot of times especially those of us that are, well, I'm in the coaching field, you're in the coaching field, but we might have people that are like, yeah, I don't really quite understand transformational coaching. Like, what's the difference between just getting curious versus, oh shit, yeah, I did that thing too.
Yeah, yeah. I actually think, and maybe you also share this opinion, but I think that when you're truly in a space of curiosity, there actually isn't any room for judgment,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm,
So going at it from a place of, I wonder if, or I wonder why, instead of, I can't believe that I
yeah,
blank, right?
yeah.
We, you know, I consider curiosity to simply be one, practicing awareness and being intentional,
Mm-hmm,
and two, just gathering information and then deciding if you want to do something with that or
mm-hmm,
about that.
mm-hmm,
Um, there isn't any need to judge yourself because, as you say, you're simply looking at what is. You're
mm-hmm.
looking at what's already happening
Mhm,
in a way that you probably or maybe haven't before.
mhm,
And that's kind of it, right? You don't have to do anything about it. And I also think when we judge ourselves, it just like self judgment and shame are just not the ways forward. It
mhm,
usually works in the opposite way that we want it to. And
mhm,
so I think just really trying to suspend judgment when we're
mhm.
in this practice with ourselves and really just try to be gentle and compassionate with what we're
Yes,
finding
yes.
is truly the way forward. And I think when we're in that space of curiosity and compassion with ourselves,
Mhm.
we are way more likely to show up honestly. We're way more likely to uncover information that can truly shed some light on our lives and where
Yeah,
things are at.
yeah, totally. I love that this is a combination, again, back to the holistic approach. It's the inner game of what's going on in our mind and what's going on inside with our feelings.
Yeah.
Once we're clear there, then there's some action steps. So
Yeah.
do you want to talk about any of the action pieces at all, besides the getting clear on, all right, like, there's definitely a great prompt and questions
Mhm.
to ask ourselves first.
Yeah. Um, so, I mean, yeah, a huge part of the work that I do as well is mindset work, right?
Mhm,
Because so much, well, everything, our
mhm.
experiences are based on what we believe to be true, the
Yep,
meaning that we apply.
yep.
And so a big part of how I work with clients is supporting them in learning how to manage their thoughts and manage their beliefs, and shifting beliefs around what they believe to be true about alcohol, how it exists in their lives. So I would say mindset work and exercises and practices are definitely part of the action piece. Because, for example, if we believe, like I once did, that I will never have fun again in the absence of alcohol, then that absolutely will be my reality.
Sure.
And so it is learning again how to like hone that self-awareness, to intercept those thoughts, to challenge those thoughts as they're happening, to redirect, and to live into a different belief and a different experience, which then changes your external experience. So mindset definitely, and I know you're huge on mindset work as well. So, and then, in terms of, other action items, we do a lot around habits. We do a lot around self-care. We do a lot around boundaries. We do a lot around resilience building, and all of that work also requires action, right? And so I mean, there's definitely, it really is a combination of figuring out what's happening internally for you, and then pairing that with aligned action that supports you in moving towards the life you want to be living.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And that is really key, because if we're not doing anything with the information, we're not actually going to change. Right. And I think trying to do it on our own is like one of the biggest myths too. Anything, whether we're trying to go sober or lose weight or build a business or get healthier or fill in the blank, right? We can't read the label when we're inside the bottle. It's so helpful to have somebody else kind of unpack it with us and then say, and here's some skills, here's some tools, here's some things that we can take. And then actually being supportive to help that person follow through. So I would love for you to share a little bit about, the benefits that you see your clients having because they have a coach, because they have somebody that is holding the vision for them, giving them the right steps to take in the right order, helping to create some loving and compassionate accountability so that they're actually moving, not just taking in information, but actually implementing the information to get a result.
Yeah, absolutely. So, your question just flew out of my brain. Can I hear it again, please?
Yes, absolutely. You're like, so the benefit of having support on this journey.
Yes, of course. Yes. So, I mean, it's interesting because like, I do believe, and I did this. So this is my experience. I got sober without a program, without support. But what I will say with that is it took me a long time. It took me a long time, probably more than a year and a half. And that time period was terrible because I was struggling by myself, because I had so much shame. I barely told anybody I knew what was going on, because I didn't want to admit that I had a problem. I didn't want to admit that I was struggling. I didn't want to admit that I was trying to get sober and also struggling with that. So it took me a long time. It was really hard. I didn't know what I was doing. So much of what I was doing was trial and error. And when you are trying to create change and you keep making mistakes and you don't know the better way to do it, so you just keep like bumping into things and falling over, it's terrible. It's terrible. And so, and I think like we both share this in working with coaches. It's like, we take care of all of that, right? Because we support you by giving you the program. We walk beside you the entire time. We say, try this next, then try this next. And it's already tools and practices that we know are effective. So we speed things up for people. we provide the structure and the container for people to do the growth work in.
Mhm.
We cheer them on. We
Mhm.
provide support and care and accountability. Like for, I'm currently running one of my group coaching programs,
Mhm.
and there is a woman in it who, prior to this program, the longest she had gone was 24 hours without alcohol. And she just celebrated 3 weeks. And
Amazing.
she said
Wow.
this program was the first space where she was even able to talk about what she was experiencing.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so having the community,
Mhm.
having the accountability, having the space, having, try this, then try this, then try
Mhm.
this,
Mhm.
it's accelerating her results. And as she is doing it and as she is trying these new things, she's also building her confidence.
Yep.
She is building her competence. She is building her resiliency to manage whatever other bumps in the road are coming.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I think like that's the benefit of working with a coach. Like
Yeah.
we all can struggle
Yeah.
for as long as we want,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can, but
Yeah.
it's like, okay, great. Well, if you want to like reduce the struggle, reduce the suffering, and actually work with somebody who's been where you are, who can walk you through it, who can provide that care, the tools, the resources, the
Mm.
support, the program, like it's like night and day,
Yeah. Yeah.
when I
Yeah.
think of what I do now for clients and their experiences versus what I did by myself struggling through it
Yep.
for
Yep.
a year and a half, it's
Yep.
like night and day.
Yeah, I love that because it collapses the timeline, right? I
Yes.
know for you,
Yeah.
for me, even when I was building and growing my business, yeah, we can struggle. We can try to kind of, I call it popsicle sticking and duct taping things together because that is
Yeah.
kind of what we're doing. Well, let's try this and let's try
Yeah.
this. And it can be so frustrating and it can be
Yes.
so demotivating and it
Yes.
can be like, almost losing hope and,
Yes.
wanting to give up because you're like, I just can't do this. Well,
Yeah.
when you've got support, that actually collapses the timeline significantly.
Yeah.
So I love that you just gave that beautiful example of, can you do it on your own? Sure, you can if you stick with it and if you don't give up and if you're willing to go through a longer process. But when you've got support and a community and the loving guidance, it just gets you through that tough time so much quicker.
Yeah. And I think, I think not necessarily, especially, but really for my clients, helping them start to accumulate the quick wins is
Yes.
so important. It's
Yes.
so important, which is
Yep.
why when I think back to my own trial and error of like, I'll try
Mhm.
this and then I'll like go to this free webinar and I'll get this
Yes.
workbook and I'll
Yep.
just
Yep.
read this thing. And it's like, you want to immediately start to show your clients that they can do this, they
Mhm.
can do the hard
Mhm.
things and accumulate those wins because that will then inspire and
Yep.
fuel and motivate them to keep
Yep.
going.
Yep.
And that's real hard to do and to sustain on your own,
Yep.
especially when you keep trying. And I don't want to say failing. I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned
Yep.
in missteps, but like you don't want to mostly be misstepping,
Yeah.
right? It feels
Exactly.
really terrible.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so creating those quick wins, which comes from creating a program that's actionable and
Mhm.
achievable,
Mhm.
um, is a really important part, especially at the beginning.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. So you also have a community for sober curious as well as those that want to become sober. Can you share the name of the Facebook group so that we can kind of, and by the
Yes.
way, we will absolutely add all of these links in the description. So be sure to scroll down in the description so that you can uh, join Amy inside of her Facebook group. And we're also going to give you an amazing freebie that she's got for you today too.
Yeah. So, following your sage advice earlier this year, I created a private Facebook group.
Yay.
Yeah. And it's just like when I think back to what I imagined it could be before I created it, this is what it is now, which
Yeah.
is so lovely. It's this like intimate, engaged, supportive space where sober and sober curious women can share and be witnessed and seen and held, and everybody cheers each other on.
Mhm.
And it's just so lovely to see. So thank you for
Yeah.
that really
Yeah.
awesome suggestion. It
Totally.
feels like it's actually the community that I was seeking when I wanted to get sober,
Yeah.
and now
Yeah.
I get to like be a part of it with all these
Mhm.
amazing women.
Mhm.
So it is called the Whole and Well Sober Collective. So Whole and Well is my company, and Sober Collective. And yeah, if you are a sober or sober curious woman, please come join us. It is a brave, safe space where everybody belongs. And we just get to support each other and cheer each other on. And even just this morning, oh,
Sorry, I had to sneeze.
oh, okay.
Right in the middle. I'm like, ah, I'm like,
All good.
hold it. Didn't work. Sorry.
Yeah, even just this morning, one of the members is celebrating 30 sober days, and she's been in the group, I'm not sure how long, but this is, I think, her longest stint. And it's just really lovely to see people really stepping into their power and using the support of the community to really fuel creating change in their lives. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So yeah, click on the link, check it out. It's beautiful. I'm in there too. Absolutely love it. Amy is so loving and so compassionate and so wise. So you will definitely feel like you've got a place to belong there. And then tell us about your freebie. You've got 5 tips, steps. I'm going to let you describe it.
Yeah. So I have a freebie. It is called the 5-step guide to kickstart your sobriety workbook, or kickstart your sobriety workbook. And again, this is something that I wanted to create for people, almost like a roadmap, because it can feel so overwhelming when you get to a place where you're like, do I want to do this? Do I want, like, how do I move forward?
Yeah.
What is the thing that would be most helpful for me? Should I try this or should I try this? And so I try to really cut through that noise with this workbook and just, again, give you actionable steps that you can take right now, that don't require anything other than your desire to try something new and your willingness to show up in a different way. And yeah, it's a workbook that I created for anybody who's interested in getting sober and creating change when it comes to their relationship to alcohol.
Amazing. Amy, thank you so much for sharing today.
Thank you for having me. This was so great.
Yeah, amazing. All right, everybody, go grab the links, grab the guide, join us in the Facebook group. Be sure to say hello. And thank you so much for being here today. We'll see you next time. Bye.